Welcome back, B'ez Hashem. We're looking forward to continue today this brand new Igeres, which we began after a lengthy Chaf. We began Chaf Aleph, which is the 21st epistle in this segment of Igeres HaKodesh, the fourth segment of Sefer Tanya. So, to try to do this a bit more brief, this which we periodically mention about the Igeres HaKodesh, this segment, and its distinctness over the previous segments. Lukuti Amorim, Sharich V'Muni, Igeres HaTshuva. As we know, that Tanya has 5 segments. This is famously expressed by the Tzemach Tzedek himself. The Tanya is the Torah Shebiksav of Teres Achsidus. Igeres HaKodesh, again, unique in its kind. We had a full presentation in the beginning of Yud of this very Igeres HaKodesh. It's about 10 or 11 over. Instead of repeating, there's a backdrop to this entire Igeres HaKodesh, to this entire segment, just to be able to click and to click away to see that there. Of course, namely for the newcomers, those who are following, pretty much know quite well. We do additionally periodically mention it, but again, it's really a click away to the Igeres HaKodesh Yud, beginning of 10. Now, one of the things we did mention, and this is relevant for this which we're learning in, especially if you followed last week's class, that one of the threads you can definitely see in the entire Igeres HaKodesh, and it's threaded through the entire Igeres HaKodesh, is the mitzvah tzedakah. We did mention not every one of these epistles are speak about tzedakah. For that matter, there are certain ones which the word tzedakah doesn't even come up, believe it or not. I say believe it or not because you do see that this is a pattern. This is a thread which threads through the entire Igeres HaKodesh. The Alter Rebbe writes many, many letters in this segment, urging, encouraging his followers to give biyod rechava, to donate in a broad hand to the Anshe Eretz HaKodesh, those who live in Eretz Yisrael. Now, directly it was, Alter Rebbe was campaigning for the Reb Mendel Haradoker and his followers, which made that famous aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. They lived in Tzfas a bit, they lived in Tveri. They went through a very difficult time, and Alter Rebbe had an enormous campaign to raise funds for them and their families, which was called Tzidkas Eretz Yisrael. It's Tzedakah for Eretz Yisrael, which Alter Rebbe mentions this terminology quite a bit. And in these Igeres HaKodesh, you have quite a few, or many of these Igeres HaKodesh. Alter Rebbe addresses directly this idea, indirectly, but this is something you can definitely say is underscored in this very segment. And I repeat it a little more now because, because this Igeres HaKodesh Chaf Aleph is the Alter Rebbe noting about this very campaign, but he adds some different perspectives. In every Igeres HaKodesh, one in coming from different angles and adding to this idea of one committing himself to donate and in larger scales, larger sums towards this campaign, because again, as we know, the backdrop, they weren't just in need, they were in dire need. And Alter Rebbe worked tirelessly to bring the maximum funds to them. Literally, they should be able to make ends meet, at least. So in every one of these Igeres HaKodesh, Alter Rebbe adds another idea. And this is coming from the prism of the Alter Rebbe, which he was the founder of Chassidus Chabad. So when the Alter Rebbe has a presentation, any presentation in Igeres HaKodesh, there is an idea which he explains based on the teachings of Teres Achsidus, which he was the one who brought Teres Achsidus in this form, in this manner, which is again the Chassidus Chabad. Alter Rebbe's inimitable presentations about the deepest ideas within Torah, within Kabbalah and Zohar, and explaining it. The reason it was called Chassidus Chabad, that the human intellect should be able to perceive, appreciate, understand, absorb, and transform. Because when you understand something thoroughly, it's a transformational experience. And Alter Rebbe, as the author of Chassidus Chabad, as the first Chabad Rebbe, meaning to say the one who introduced Chassidus Chabad, in every one of these Igeres, added another, explained certain ideas with this, based on the Chassidus that Alter Rebbe presented already, even in this Sefer Tanya Kadisha, which Alter Rebbe himself, as we notice, cross-references a lot to Kuti Amorim, Shaykh B'Muni, Geras HaTshuva as an example, and through that lens adds a certain idea with the explanation and certain Igeres. The Alter Rebbe has like an expansion again based on his Torah, leading to the very same idea, another point leading to the same idea, and as such, based on everything what I explained, we can appreciate how important, how significant this is to contribute to tzedakah in general, Tzidkas Eretz Yisrael in particular, and again towards this very campaign, and in great measures towards this tzedakah. And then another Igeres, again, every Igeres which is with a different idea, because it wasn't just, okay, the same idea we're campaigning, which this is where, by any campaign, from time to time, you write another letter. One letter is very similar to the other. Because you're just campaigning for a certain idea. But Alter Rebbe just didn't campaign yet again and again, which he did, but he came through with a certain other explanation of another idea. Took a pasuk in Torah or in Tanakh and explained the pasuk. And when you come after that, Alter Rebbe's explanation, Alter Rebbe culminates with that explanation of that pasuk and say, now we can appreciate the virtue of giving tzedakah in general, or tzedakah of Eretz Yisrael. So now it comes through with a different light, and it comes through with a different approach. And a way it arouses, from a different part of the neshama which appreciated that very message, to implement this tzedakah which Alter Rebbe is demanding in that very Igeres, and to follow not only with the passionate call of the Alter Rebbe, but with the appreciation of this presentation of the Alter Rebbe, which led to that calling. And then the Alter Rebbe again has another Igeres, which he comes through from another angle, explained with an inimitable manner of the Alter Rebbe through the lens of Chassidus Chabad, and again ending up in the same idea. And therefore, we can understand and appreciate, based on this pasuk, which Alter Rebbe just explained in that Igeres, the importance of giving tzedakah and giving in abundance, and again landing on the Tzidkas Eretz Yisrael. And so too in this very chapter, in this very Igeres, Chaf Aleph, Alter Rebbe points out a certain idea, not only about giving tzedakah, and to this very tzedakah, but more so the doing it with zrizus, with haste, with alacrity, and that is frequently donating to this cause. And as Alter Rebbe explained last week, the one who used to pick up these funds, which was known to be the Shadarim, which was called, where they were called, the Shadar was called Shluchud Rachmana. He was the Shliach which came sent by the Alter Rebbe. There were a few, and each one had to go through different areas, right Russia, wherever the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim lived at the time, and he would go and collect these funds. So he would come a certain day of the year, which apparently one would say, what's the difference if I separate the funds which were meant to be given for this cause once a month or once a week or maybe once in a half a year when he would come. So we explained last week that first of all there's the idea of being involved in the mitzvah of tzedakah frequently, which demonstrates the phenomenon of zrizus, means I'm zaris, I'm not waiting to the last moment, a day before he would show up, or when he would show up, there was no message directly sent. It was pretty much they knew the time of the year he would be coming, and wait till the end when he comes. The idea of doing it monthly, or even weekly, from the day he left and the last time he showed up to the day he would come, there would be, let's say, 6 months. That time, 6 times I would separate the funds for this cause, or for that matter, the 24 weeks, 24 times I would separate the funds and leave it in the place where, with a designated place. When he comes, they'd be able to give it to him. Now, so it was the idea of doing it frequently, as we'll see as the Alter Rebbe continues in this very Geras, the significance of doing something frequently as opposed to infrequently doing, particularly when we're Mekayim the Ratzon Hashem's desire, and specifically when it comes to tzedakah. But we spoke about this last week, we're not going to mention it again, that it meant in the end of the day that the quantity which would be given to that shliach, one who picked up the money, was far greater than had he done it only once. As we explained also, we just went through the idea, how in the end of the day, separating this money, these funds frequently, if it was once monthly, the Rebbe says, or midei chodesh b'chodesh, or midei Shabbos b'Shabbatei, which means, let's say in 6 months, let's say he would come once in 6 months, I don't remember exactly how often he would come, which probably it's noted somewhere, but let's say once in 6 months, so he wouldn't just separate once prior to the shliach coming to pick up the money, but rather 6 times, or 24 times. And it ended up, again, the quantity of tzedakah would have been greater, and many times far greater. But this is on top of the idea of a person every week separating the tzedakah for this cause that itself, on its own, was very valuable, based on what we know, how the Kodesh Baruch Hu wants us to fulfill his mitzvahs. Hashem wants us to do this which he asked us to do, which are the 248 precepts, 248 mitzvahs, positive mitzvahs. Of course, he wants us to refrain and from engaging in this which he told us not to do, not to think, not to talk, and so on, which are known to be the Leisasa, but there's 248 mitzvahs. Hashem, in his Torah, demands from us not only to do his mitzvahs, but to do it with haste, to do it with zrizus, with alacrity. And the idea of not waiting till the end when he would show up every month, or better yet, as the Rebbe gives the options, midei chodesh b'chodesh, every month, or better yet, every week, the person separating from his funds for this cause is something great on high by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Together with the fact, again, we spoke a little bit last week, that it was inevitable that the amounts would reach higher when one did that, as explained last week. But the idea of exercising this oneself, in other words, in the mitzvah of tzedakah, and doing it frequently, which is the notion of zrizus and avodas Hashem, alacrity in the service of Hashem, particularly when it comes to tzedakah, is unique and special and very dear on high. And this, the Alter Rebbe goes on, if you remember, perhaps we'll begin over here regarding Avram Avinu. We spoke about Avram Avinu last week already, which by Avram Avinu we saw this idea more than everything when he was tested, that famous 10th test, which is bringing his son to the Akedah as a sacrifice for Hashem, which eventually was just a test. Hashem should just bring them up to the mountain, and eventually the Malach bin Hashemayim said, no, Avram, do not slaughter Yitzchak. And eventually, with the merit of the Akedas Yitzchak, as it says so many Svarim, and it says in a number of places by Mari Azal, Yidden were able to overcome and continue with their performance and their existence, if you will, throughout all the millennia, which is the reason, as it says, that we repeat the story and the whole experience of Avram Avinu and the virtuous outcome of the Akedas Yitzchak every single day, because this is the schus with this merit, the energy, the enormous energy which existed via this test of Akedas Yitzchak, that connection of Avram Avinu and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'hi Sha'amda Lanu. This withstands the Jewish people all throughout all generations. Again, this is the reason why we say it every single day. And we've been through a lot. We've been around the block, as we say, as an expression. And nonetheless, we continue to exist and continue to perform individually and collectively. Am Yisrael is there forever. And one of the things which established that was the schus of Akedas Yitzchak. How Avram Avinu went beyond the norm to take his only son which he waited for 100 years, and he was, because Hashem told him to bring him up as a korban, as a sacrifice, he went ahead blindly and did so. Now, we're not going to go into everything. If you see the last class, we went into different details, but Avram Avinu wasn't just that giving up a son that he waited for 100 years, which of course is a human being, which Avram was a human being. There's something that a person connects and sentimentally connects to, there's a sentimental connection to every child, particularly a child you waited for 100 years, and that was Binchas Yechidcha. Again, from Sarah, that was the only child. Of course, it was a difficult thing to do, but Avram Avinu, there is not only another dimension, this is the most important by Avram Avinu, that who will be the one to continue with this message of Achdus Hashem, the monotheistic message which Avram Avinu brought to himself, to his family, and to the entire world at the time. And Avram Avinu knew that Yitzchak would be the only one who would be able to continue with this important message. And if he brings him up as the Akedah, the whole Avrahamic, if you will, message would, at the end of the day, fizzle out, and in the end of the day, be overridden by the other winds and the other influences which Elam Haza, even when you have an Avram Avinu, as we know, there was those who opposed Avram Avinu when he was around. Even though he triumphed, as the Lashon and the Rambam, which is based in Gemara, he had tens of thousands, myriads of thousands, which followed Avram Avinu. And of course, each one of his children, if each one of those followers would have make an effort to perpetuate this very message, but in the end of the day, you need a leader, and particularly someone who's a biological descendant of Avram Avinu, to really continue with this message. And that was really what was bothering Avram Avinu. And of course, from so many different angles. Take Yitzchak and bring him in as Akedah. Besides, again, as a human being, and to do what? To really take the life of one one's child. That itself, it says in a number of places that the real Nisayin was someone's ready to give up his own life, but to take the life, literally to be the one who to take the life out of your own child, because Hashem said bring him up a korban, that is that is beyond difficult. But Avram Avinu did it because that's what Hashem told him to do. And eventually he didn't actually do it because Hashem told him in the end, to the last moment, that it was just a test. But from Avram Avinu's perspective, he's ready to go ahead and do that. And to what degree that Avram Avinu ready to do that? So it says that Avram Avinu, if you see in the Psukim, that he didn't do this sluggishly. Okay, of course Hashem, I'll do what you're asking me to do. But give me some time. Let me sleep in the next morning. It's a hard thing psychologically. Let me make sense. Hashem, by the way, allowed it to make sense by Avram Avinu. In other words, it should resonate. It shouldn't be 1, 2, 3. In other words, just grab him and under the influence of that excitement that Hashem spoke to you, He talked to you. He said, take your son. You're just running to do it. Hashem says the Har Maria is about 3 days away. In those 3 days, Avraham Avinu had enough to digest this very complicated command, and difficult command, difficult for many different levels. But nonetheless, as we mentioned, it wasn't just the physical connection he had with Yitzchak. On the overall, Avraham Avinu was a merkava to a lukus, completely subservient to Hashem and Hashem's calling, which at that time the idea of introducing the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to a fragmented world, a paganistic world. And this is Avram's life. And the only consolement he had, the only comfort he had, would be that after his passing, that his son Yitzchak would carry the torch forward. And this is going to come to a stop. This is really what's bothering Avraham Avinu. But he went. But one of the things that you see by Avraham Avinu, he got up there, that very morning, got up very early. And the whole journey, till Har Maria, he did it with excitement. He did it with haste. He did it with joy. He did it with gladness of heart. He did it with alacrity. And that was very unique on its own. You're going to do something which is so counterintuitive. It's so difficult to even appreciate, even when we read the Akedah Yitzchak, like what's going on? How could that ever be? And that itself drains a person, brings a person back, holds a person back. Yes, I'm going to do it. I'm a servant of Hashem. But what's the excitement? What's the joy? Why are you getting up early? Why are you saddling your own donkey? As we spoke about this last week, and again, we'll mention it again in a bit. Answer, because Avraham Avinu is a true servant. It's not only I'm going to do what you ask me to do, I'm looking forward to express my servitude towards you, Hashem. You're God. And I am the one who's introducing you to the world. So primarily Avraham Avinu identifies deeper than any other human being lived in the face of the earth at that time, his deepest connection with God, with Hashem. And for that matter, Avraham was known to be Avraham Ayavi. He loved Hashem. He was in love with Hashem. The connection was on every single level. The deep connection, and it was a very demonstrable connection, because he truly loved Hashem. Famous expression of the Rambam means loving Hashem. It's not just love is not just a badge; it's a sensation. Avraham Avinu was passionately in love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when you're in love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you do things different. You do things the way Avraham Avinu did it. In this case, without any procrastination, which, again, it wouldn't be a chisar, it wouldn't be a deficiency for anybody, even for Avraham Avinu, because of this enormous calling. Take Yitzchak and bring him up to the Akedah. But Avraham Avinu is so in love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he does it in a different way. He does it with joy. He does it with alacrity. He does it with haste. Now, why is the Alter Rebbe bringing it over here? The Rebbe is bringing this. Why is the Alter Rebbe bringing it over here? Because the Alter Rebbe is, as we started this chapter, the Sigeres, or today explaining the beginning of the first part of the Sigeres, Alter Rebbe is underscoring the idea of not only doing a mitzvah, in this case doing the mitzvah of tzedakah, but doing it with haste, doing with excitement, and therefore every month, or even better yet, every week, separating the tzedakah. So when the shliach comes to pick it up, it's right there, and again with greater amount, and in the tzedakah, which was separated so frequently, demonstrated the connection to that very mitzvah, to that very calling, to the very, very campaign of the Alter Rebbe, which again is based on the mitzvah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, particularly such a great mitzvah like the mitzvah of tzedakah. And that's why the Alter Rebbe brings this story, a story of Avraham Avinu, to tell us that this is really what Avraham Avinu was all about. This is why there is the schus of the Akedah, that we reap the energy and the merit of the Akedah. And again, the reason why we say the Akedah every day was not only because of Avraham Avinu's commitment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, demonstrated via allowing himself to take his own son and bring him to the Akedah, but namely it was because of his zrizus, his alacrity. That's where the real merit is. Now, that's why we can bring the proof. He says, you can't say it's just because he had Mesiras Nefesh. He says, in history, there wasn't those who had Mesiras Nefesh to give up their lives for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So one would say, maybe what about giving up the life of their children to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Which is a different type of nisayon, a different type of test. And the answer to this is, so for that matter, yeah, those who answer this question, that apparently, why are we celebrating Avraham Avinu so much? We had in our long history, difficult history, we were tested to the extent of the demand for Mesiras Nefesh. Unfortunately, millions, it's not an exaggerated number, over our history, gave up their life for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So why are we celebrating Avraham Avinu? So those who want to say that it's about not only being Mesiras Nefesh, it's giving up your own life, but taking your child again, in this case, there's detail, there's backdrop, that it was a child that he waited for, and he anticipated, and he prayed for, and he was given to him after 100 years, and Sarah after 90 years of her life, when she gave birth to Yitzchak. So it's a different type of Mesiras Nefesh, but nonetheless, if you look on our history, there's those who allow their children to die for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Famously, the Chan and her 7 sons, the whole story, actually, she mentioned Avraham Avinu before she passed away herself. She said, Avraham Avinu, you ready to give up one of your children? I give up all my children. And I actually gave up all my children. They were actually killed at the time. We remember this famous Gemara. So there's those who did that as well. So why do we celebrate Avraham Avinu more than everybody? So there's different answers are given. One of the answers, Avraham Avinu opened up the expression is Pasach HaTziner, literally translated. He opened up the pipeline. He introduced the phenomenon of Mesiras Nefesh. So he already imbued in the psyche, in the core of every single yid, which would follow Avraham Avinu, which are Bnei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, to have that ability to be Mesiras Nefesh, to give up their life for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or the life of their children for that matter. So when you're the first, it's always the pioneer, the first which introduces idea. But here it's not only a formal introduction to an idea, but it's something which Avraham Avinu, Maisa Avisim Lebanim, he imbued this energy to his children, that a person is able to give up his life for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's one, and not one answer was given, but the Alter Rebbe gives an answer over here. That follow the details, again, even in the Chumash. And then you see Mamari Azal, how Avraham Avinu executed this command. And this is, it lies therein, in other words, the greatness of Avraham Avinu, the merit of Avraham Avinu. And this merit which would carry Am Yisrael forward for millennia and for all times. It's because exactly the way he did it. He didn't just do what Hashem told him to do. He did it with haste. He did it with excitement. He did it with enthusiasm. He did it with joy. He did it with alacrity. And as we see again, even in the Chumash, the fact that he woke up early that morning. How can't you not sleep in just to try to make sense of something? But he was so excited. Lasis, chafetz, as the Lashon is, to do the command of his Creator. He woke up early in the morning. The other idea which we just mentioned, he saddled his own donkey. Avraham Avinu was known to be a nasi, a leader, a king, if you will. He had many, many followers. On the overall, he had tens of thousands, the Lashon of the Gemara, that Rambam brings, of followers, and of course in his own inner circle, there was many people. There was the chain of command. Many immediate surroundings that if he had to go somewhere, he would send a message, call in one of his accomplices and say, we're going somewhere tomorrow or early in the morning in this case. So make sure that donkey is saddled. Avraham Avinu doesn't need to saddle his own donkey. There's a chain of command that he just says, and eventually it comes to the person who is standing in the area of the donkeys to get the best donkey. Avraham Avinu is ready to go somewhere. Let's warm up the car, if you will. In this case, saddle the donkey. But it says Avraham Avinu himself saddled the donkey because he was so excited, based on his deep love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he himself just received an important command. He ran himself to saddle the donkey, which again demonstrated his excitement and enthusiasm to not only fulfill a command of his Creator, but this difficult by definition and by all definitions on the simple level, on the emotional level, and on the spiritual level, as we just explained. And other things that the Chazal tell us how Avraham Avinu went to the Akedah of those three till he got there, and again it took him 3 days. The reason why there was, Hashem said, bring him to Har Moriah, besides the fact that Har Moriah became the place where the Beis HaMikdash stood. Beis HaMikdash is based on Mesiras Nefesh. But in the end of the day, it was set up of a 3-day journey, that it wasn't like a 1, 2, 3, it was just Hashem. So I want to tell you who Avraham Avinu is, that he gets it, and another day he gets it even differently, another day he gets it differently, and by the 3rd day he's really ready with the same excitement as when I told him in the time of the actual execution of this command. He has the same enthusiasm, the same excitement, the same expression of joy and elation to fulfill this complicated, by all means, this unique command of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is the reason why we celebrate Avraham Avinu. And that is the reason why we, Am Yisrael, is able to reap these benefits and this virtuous energy from that whole episode of Avraham Avinu. Not so much the fact that he gave up his life for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's Avraham Avinu. And Avraham Avinu, Hashem told him, all those who gave up their life in the years after, they knew that this is, in the end of the day, a mitzvah Torah, but Hashem did knock on their door and say, Yankel, or whatever it is, tomorrow you'll have this test, I want you to be Meiser Nefesh. That's a different story when God himself comes over to you and tells that to you. It makes it all that different, of course. Less challenging, one way or another. And here Hashem tells Avraham Avinu. And all the other reasons, again, why Avraham Avinu, of course, would do it. But the real reason why the real buildup of merit, which is so strong and deep and profound, which Am Yisrael reaps from this merit throughout all millennia, again, forever, is because of the more than, again, in this chapter explained, more than Avraham Avinu executing Ritzayin Bayre, the desire of his Creator. Beyond that, this way Avraham Avinu did it, with excitement and alacrity, which was again expressed in, as we see the Psukim, the way Avraham Avinu implemented and went forward with this command, unique command. And with this, we're able to glean that the mitzvahs that Hashem tells us to do, more than just doing the mitzvahs, is the way we do it. Not to do the mitzvah sluggishly, not to do the mitzvah, yes, I'll get there, but to do it earlier and to do it with excitement, which would be the reason why I'm doing it earlier or more frequent. And in this case, yeah, he's coming at a certain date. No, but every week I'm going to separate another part of tzedakah, that when the individual comes, I'm going to hand it over to him, this which I already accumulated over the last 6 months, as an example. 6 times or 24 times. That is very unique, very, very special, particularly as we mentioned, in the end of the day, there was more tzedakah to be given. We explained this last week. And that's very, together with the mitzvah itself, which is dear on high, of course, because Hashem is the commander and we're the commandees, and when we fulfill his command, we connect with him For that matter, mitzvah is Lashon Safsa v'chibur. The mitzvah, the word mitzvah itself is about connection. So everything happens when we do the mitzvah, but we multiply all this when we do this with the haste and alacrity and excitement. It's a total different idea, which is again the message in Chaf Aleph. Which again, Chaf Aleph is one of those chapters which, yes, Allah again speaks about that Tzidkas Eretz HaKodesh, referring to this campaign, which the Alter Rebbe campaigned again for this group led by their Rebbe, Reb Mendel Haradoker, which made that Aliyah to Eretz HaKodesh, as we know. So before we go on, so we began this idea already, but we're going to start Kini Milvada Yadua Lokoil. But just to quickly note, we say the previous class, wherever you're watching it, but there is the advantage of Tanya online as one word website. So it's tanyaonline.com. And the advantage, as all the previous classes, not only the more recent classes, but all the classes in the entire Yegeres HaKodesh, and the entire, mentioned before, to have a little more of an understanding of the backdrop of Yegeres HaKodesh in Yud, which is 10 behind. Of course, it's on the site, but all the way to the beginning of Yegeres HaKodesh and the Yegeres HaTshuva, and before that, Sharich Memuna, and the entire Likutei Amarim, which we merited to learn together over these many years. I look forward in the many years, Abba Aleinu L'Teva, to continue with this holy study. So there's all the previous classes are lined up on this website, again, tanyaonline.com, from the top to bottom, easier to access. We talk about the more latter classes. The advantage also that you have the text in a separate scroll bar, as such easier to follow the class, and the advantage of having all those classes up, besides the ability to back up wherever we're learning. If we're learning, for example, the previous Yegeres had many classes, so you have them all lined up to review, or if new, to look into it to understand the following class as an example. But on the overall, additional to the Alter Rebbe, like we mentioned earlier, cross-referencing many times from one to the one Yegeres to the other, or from one segment to the other, which we have it frequently by the Alter Rebbe. We as well, I don't know, we could say as well when talking about the Alter Rebbe, but we said that we mentioned the other day, we don't say lahavdil between even a tzaddik Alter Rebbe and an average yid. There's a famous rule that between two yid and whatever, but we could just they'll add that we follow as we learn an idea and we present an idea of the Alter Rebbe, there's certain times you come to a Perek and you take note that the Alter Rebbe explained this elaborately, expansively in another area of Yegeres HaKodesh or the previous chapter. So we also cross-reference and say, look, we just came to an idea that it's a click away. Again, with today's technology and the way this website is set up, it's literally a few seconds. Go into that chapter and open up the chapter in the area which is spoken about, and you'll see the presentation of the Alter Rebbe, and to appreciate it, because the Alter Rebbe at that place, again, that in one place it's succinct and the other place is elaborate. So better go when we're learning about an idea, instead of taking the time to elaborate again on the idea, we just send you to the other place, and again it's just a click away. So we have the entire look at up till the this chafal of the entire Tanya from the very beginning lined up on this site that you could always tap in. And again, particularly as we cross-reference to other areas where these very, very ideas are explained in length and in detail, and as such, so easy to access. So again, that's tanyaonline.com. So we're holding Kihine. Again, we started last week, if you remember, but Kihine is about 10 lines from the beginning of the chapter. Yeah, just about 9 lines from the beginning of the chapter. So the Alter Rebbe goes on with this very message. Additional to which is known already, even before Avraham Avinu. Now, before what we learn about Avram Avinu, not before Avram, before we learn about Avram Avinu, that we know the virtue of haste and alacrity in all mitzvahs, which is spoken about and studied in the words of our sages of blessed memory, not only to do the mitzvah, but do it earlier on the clock even. You know, the Gemara says regarding coming to a minyan, it's not only coming to a minyan, but there's something special and virtuous of being from Yasara Rishonim, from the first 10 of the minyan. There would be 50 people coming in thereafter, or 100 people, or 200 people, or more. Being the first 10 is something very unique, because you didn't only come to minyan, you didn't only come to daven, but you were magdim lidvar mitzvah. You were from the first 10, and on high it's very special. So if it's a minyan or any other mitzvah, to do it earlier, which is again demonstrates your excitement, right? If someone said, "Come pick up the lottery, pay out," you're there. You're not only there, but you're there quite early. Sometimes you're waiting by the door till this office opens up because you're excited with that. The same thing when a yid does a mitzvah, or beyond for that matter, because it's a mitzvah. He's mekayim mitzvahs b'yidei. He's doing the mitzvah of his creator, of Hashem. So not only to do the mitzvah, but to do it la'elam yagdim, to do it earlier, to do it first, to do it with excitement, to do it with alacrity, which means that would reflect on doing it earlier on the clock and prioritizing the mitzvah over anything else. That is very special on high. To the extent the Gemara says, and it says spoken about again and again, of doing the mitzvah with Hagdama, with Zrizus. And where do we see it? With Zrizus and Avram Avinu, the true merit of the Akedah story of the Akedah, the experience of Avram Avinu's Akedah Yitzchak is not so much the Akedah, what stands for us. As is mentioned, we suck out the marrow of the merit throughout all generations. In other words, there's kind of infinite amount of schus in the story of the Akedah, which we glean and we extract, we reap in order to continue with our Aveda, Am Yisrael in general, every Yid in particular, in the individual, after all this time. And it wasn't simple for Am Yisrael, as we know, but we continue, and this stands as our merit for generations to come. It says it's not so much the Akedah itself, it's Zrizusa da Avram Avinu. The real schus, the real merit, the real energy which exists within the story of Akedah Yitzchak is Avram Avinu's excitement, his, more than excitement, his passion, his alacrity, his haste in doing the mitzvah. He haimedes lanu la'ad lanu l'vanenu. This stands for us, for eternity, for us, for our children, ad olam, forever, for eternity. Ki Akedah atzma in nechshavas kol kach l'nisoyin. God was explained that the Akedah itself for Avram Avinu is not considered a great test. That's very strong words. But yes, we're talking about Avram Avinu, which is a servant to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The terminology about Avram Yitzchak was they were a merkava to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We mentioned this quite a few times. They were a chariot. Say it very briefly. We know chariot, it does what the rider tells it to do, or guides it, or rides via riding on it. Avram Yitzchak were chariots of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The only one which guided them was the rider, which was HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were merely chariots. Hashem, tell me where to go. Tell me what to do. I'm there. Now, one would argue and say, well, isn't an average from a Yid a chariot to Hashem? Because he gets up in the morning, he says, Maida'ani, goes to a shir, learns Torah, learns Chassidus, davens, does a mitzvah, gives tzedakah, and does all the good stuff. He sits in the sukkah and he eats matzah. Aren't all these Yidden chariots to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? The answer is, of course not. One way or another, yes, they're doing what they have to do. And everyone has to perfect himself in their Avodas Hashem, because it's much more than just doing that particular mitzvah. The Yiddishkeit is about 24 hours a day. And action, speech, thought, vision, audio, which again, these are subtle expressions in the connection of Yid to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and when the more the subtle the challenges are, the greater the avodah which needs to be done, the effort, in order to make sure that one does what he has to do, or stays away with this which he's not meant to do, to talk, to think, to see, to look at, to hear. Again, these are more subtle challenges, which are much more subtle. And a person has to come clean in the end of the 24 hours. It's a big challenge. It's not only eating the matzah on Yudalid Nisan at night or putting on tefillin every single day. It's much more than that. As we know, there's so many details which comprise the image of our devotion to our Creator, and everybody has to have that inner accountability, which causes that, allows that introspection to be able to improve in these areas which the person is lacking. And we all know that there are areas which we have to improve, even someone who is a devout servant to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, Merkava, not so fast. But there's much more to it. Because when you say a Merkava, think about a chariot. When the chariot hops onto the Merkava, the rider hops onto the chariot, it's not the chariot says to the rider, today I really want to go there, but I can't go anywhere because I'm just a chariot. You're the rider. You have the reins or however they led the chariot. So you're going to go where you wanted me to go. I'm going to go where you want me to go because you're the rider. But I had a thought today to go there. But I am submissive to you. And therefore, I'm going to go where you want me to go. Which that's the story of the chariot. The one who rides the chariot brings the chariot to where the rider wants to go. And in the Nimshul, in the message, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov only went where Hashem wanted them to go. But it's much more than that. It's like the chariot won't even say, I wanted to go left. Okay, you have the reins, you're going to go right. What should I do? That's not the nature of the chariot. The chariot has no desire at the onset. It doesn't say, I want to go there, or I want to go left, and you're the rider, and therefore you have the governing power over me, and I'm going to submit myself to you. Look at the story, look at the chariot. Wherever the rider gets on, the chariot has no say. On the onset, it only does what the rider wants it to do, goes to where the rider wants it to go. And that is the difference of Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov than to every average Yid, even a Yid which fulfills the Ratzon Hashem. Again, there's other reasons why we can't call the average Yid as a chariot to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because there's certain areas which, as we're only honest with ourselves, we need to improve. And the chariot doesn't just slip away. It says, at certain times I'm going to be this chariot, and then I'm going to go places where you don't want me to go, especially when no one's looking. No, the chariot is 24 hours a chariot to the rider. But it's much more than that, that even when we do what Hashem wants, many times, if it's 5 seconds, if it's 2 seconds, if 1 second, or it's a millisecond, there's something within us saying, no, I want to really go the other direction. Not maliciously, but I want to sleep. And no, Hashem says, you want me to wake up? Okay, I'm going to wake up because you want me to wake up. I want to be a little bit, I'm okay to come 2-3 minutes late to my class because I want to drink something or whatever, a little schmoozer, but okay, I'm going to do it the way you want me to do it. So there's something within ourselves, even the one who serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's something that we want, there's something within us, again, because of our nefesh bahamis. There's nothing malicious about we have two souls. We have the nefesh bahamis and nefesh alikis, the animal soul and the godly soul. And the animal soul, in the end of the day, as we explain, it's not even bad, not to go into it now, just like the animal, particularly the domestic animal, just does whatever contributes to its comfort. Eating, drinking, sleeping, scratching itself, whatever adds to whatever it identifies this which would contribute to its comfort. That's what it does, and we have an animal within it. We have an nefesh bahamis. So again, it's not malicious, but I want a little bit more than that. But Hashem, you said I have to be there on time, so I'm stopping, and I'm going to go there and I'm going to come on time. And if it's even asar rishayim at time. but there's always a starting point that I want to go in a different direction. But Hashem said no, so I submit myself to the will of Hashem, which is great, and it should be celebrated, and it's very grand. The fact that a person has to overcome these challenges, but you can't call him a Merkava. Merkava on the onset doesn't have anything else other than the Reichiv. It's led totally by the rider. It never has its opinion where it would want to go. And that is why the service of Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, which the Zayar tells us, Heinen Merkava, why they were in a total different league, in a total different level. And it was default by them. The Alter Rebbe writes that Kol Yimeim, thought, speech, and action, they were Merkava to Lakus. We understand now what Avram Yitzchak Yaakov is all about. So Hashem tells Avram, now you're going to the Akedah. It's like, okay, now we're going a little uphill. The chariot doesn't say, okay, now it's going to be, maybe we shouldn't go uphill. And we should just go areas which are easier to go. And a straight terrain. The chariot says nothing. Whatever the rider wants to go, the rider wants to go uphill, so that's where we're going to go. Avram Avinu hears a command from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the end of the day, from the perspective, the human perspective, it's difficult, or even for the spiritual ambition Avram Avinu has. And again, based on his spiritual objectives and goals, which he developed based on him being an Eved Hashem, to spread the message of oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the monotheistic message, and again in a paganistic world for that matter. And he knows that Yitzchak is going to be the one to take him over. You're a Merkava to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's an uphill ride, if you will. The chariot still says nothing. And this is what Alter Rebbe is saying, that the Eibishter told Avram Avinu. And Avram Avinu is a chariot to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Of course he's going to listen. That's why that's not considered L'nisayin Gadol into such a great test. Yes, was it a test? Of course it was a test. Because Avram Avinu is a human being in the end of the day. And this is the greatness of Avram Avinu, that a human being could become a Merkava to HaKadosh Baruch Hu without any questions. So it's an Nisayin, it's a great test, but it's not so much in comparison to Avram Avinu is the Erech, Mailas Avram Avinu Olav HaShalom Atzmei, Mailas Avram Avinu Olav HaShalom, in comparison to the great level Avram Avinu is. He's a Merkava to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so it's not considered so much a test as much as the way that Avram Avinu did it, where he overcame. And what tells us the greatness of Avram Avinu is not that he did what Hashem wanted to do, it's the way he did it, the way he implemented this command. With excitement, because in the end of the day, to execute a command, you can do it, just do it in the end of the day. But why the excitement? Why are you saddling your own donkey? Why are you marching towards the Hara Miriah, figuratively? That's where the test was. And that's where the great merit within Avram Avinu was. As the Alter Rebbe, he says, the Nisayin of the Kedah itself, he's Avram Avinu. You could even say, what else do you expect from Avram Avinu? Yes, it's uphill. And it is a great test one way or another. And of course there's great merit to it, but is that the schus of Avram Avinu? As the Alter Rebbe says, in comparison to the great stature of Avram Avinu, Hashem spoke to him, as we mentioned before. All these people had Mesiras Nefesh for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the generations later, Hashem never knocked on their door. Yes, it was based on the command of Hashem. Like the Rambam writes, that there is certain times the person has to give up his life for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not simple. It's far from simple. Very far from simple. On every level. But it's different when Hashem himself knocks on the door and says, you're going to have a test of Mesiras Nefesh, please go through Kach No. If it's oneself, his children, and again, our very difficult history. And here the Avram Avinu had a direct command of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem diber by Kach No as bincha. Hashem talks to you. What, are you not going to do it? Hashem is talking, and to who? To Avram Avinu. And he tells him clearly, take your son. What Avram Avinu, you would have a doubt Avram Avinu would execute that command. If he would execute that command, Hashem spoke to him. The first thing that we know, that what is so unique about it, there was many and myriads of millions, if you will, myriads of thousands and even millions over their history, which also gave up their life through the sanctity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's number one. And number two, contrasting what I just said about Hashem did not knock on their door and tell them that tomorrow or next week you're going to have the challenge of Mesiras Nefesh, and please come through with the challenge. They didn't hear that direct calling of Hashem. And Avram did. So that's not the great nisayin of the Akedah, Avram Avinu overcoming that nisayin. What was so great of Avram Avinu? Why is this the great schus, which is kayim la'ad, which exists for perpetuity? And where was the enormous energy, which was in the connection again of the energy, the Ein Sof of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which commanded Avram Avinu, Kach Noas Bincha, is namely, Avram Avinu olav hashalom asazayis b'zrizus niflo. And Avram Avinu did it with not only haste, not only with alacrity, but a wondrous haste and a wondrous alacrity. Lahare simchose b'chafetze, to demonstrate his joy and his desire, l'malis ritzein kainei, to fulfill the desire of his master, v'lasis nachas ruach liyitzrei, to bring great satisfaction to his maker, to his creator. And when you're talking about satisfaction, when someone tells someone something, could you do that for me? And he says, okay. And eventually he does it. So of course it brings satisfaction to the one who asked, the one who commanded. Or in this case, it doesn't have to be a command, even a request, two parties. So there it's not necessarily one submitting himself, but he's doing for the other party. And he brings him nachas, he brings him satisfaction. Thank you, you helped me, or you helped the other party. I was campaigning for something, you're there. It brings the satisfaction of the one who requested to the one is requested, who is requested. But there's an additional satisfaction that you call somebody and within 2 minutes you see it right up on your screen that he made the transaction right away. If it's a campaign or anything else, personal, communal, or whatever it is, that brings a deeper satisfaction to the one running the campaign from the person he was calling out to. Because he didn't just do it, he did it with excitement. I just put down the phone, I'm looking at my screen, he already sent that money anyway. He was able to send it. Or he's at my door with that payment. That brings enormous additional wave, if you will, of satisfaction for the one who's calling, to the one who's implementing that call, for that cause. Again, it could be personal, communal, whatever it is. There's something when it's done with great, when it's indicative that it's done with great joy. The fact that you did it so quickly, that shows how you're excited. Not only you're ready to do it, but you're excited to do it. In other words, when something comes through quick, and when something is done with haste, and something is done with alacrity, that demonstrates the great desire, the great joy which this individual has towards the command, or the one who's commanding, or the one who's suggesting, and again, at every single level. And that's a different type of connection, a different type of action, a different type of connecting to that command, again, on every level, or that suggestion, or again, if it's personal, to that request, a total different approach, a total different connection to it. And you're talking about a commander and a commandee, and the commandee does it in such a way with such excitement that you see that the excitement is reflected on the fact that he does it so quickly. It's a different type of nachas ruach, a different type of satisfaction, which is given to the one who's calling for it on every different level. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avram Avinu to bring up his son Kach Noas Bincha, Avram Avinu does it by Yashkem Avram Abayker. And he goes ahead and saddles his own donkey. Avram Avinu does not need to saddle his donkey, and particularly if you think about the age and stage of Avram Avinu. At that point, Avram Avinu is 137 years old. And it's not about elderliness, it's about Avram Avinu was this great figure at the time. He was a great figure even before that. When the Kosh Baruch Hu told him, Avram lech lecha, Avram Avinu immediately, for that matter, even years before, as the Medrash tells us, from 3 years old, he already recognized his Creator, and he gathered and he established this movement, and he had tens of thousands of followers. And now he's 137 years old. He is a kingly image. He's a Nasi, even. If you remember in the Parsha, he was called a Nasi. In Torah, he was called a Nasi. He has to go saddle his donkey. It doesn't make sense on all levels. His age, his stage, but namely his figure, his image. But Avraham Avinu runs to saddle his own donkey. I want to do it myself, because I want to do it quick, and I want to. Hashem gave me this. There's nothing more in my life than doing what Hashem told me, even though by definition, by all definitions, it's the hardest type of action one could ever do, to take their son, again, as we explained in so many different levels. That's the schus of it. That was the nisayon of the Akedah. And that is the schus, the merit, which was built at that time, which it was accumulated at that time. The enormous energy was accumulated at that time. Avraham Avinu fulfilling this command. From there, our sages of blessed memory learned and gleaned to fulfill all the mitzvahs in general with haste and alacrity, particularly when it comes to the actions of tzedakah, charity, which supersedes all. Why does tzedakah supersede all? So we're going to send you right away to the 37th chapter. And again, it says it's based on Chazal, more than any other mitzvah. Take to the Lukuti Amorim, the first segment, Perek Lamed Zayin. Towards the center of Lamed Zayin, Alter Rebbe explains after his explanation of the idea of what mitzvahs are all about. And again, with that, he demonstrates, it brings the message home, as we could see it evidently, based on Alter Rebbe's beautiful explanation. Beautiful explanation, godly explanation. Alter Rebbe was the Alter Rebbe. But brilliant explanation. Again, it's hard to say the word brilliant because he was the Ish Elokim. But again, his mandate and bringing everything into Chochmah Bina Das, that the human intellect could appreciate it. And Alter Rebbe has such a beautiful explanation there, a unique explanation, what mitzvahs are all about. And with that, we can understand why tzedakah is a total different type of mitzvah, and why it supersedes and why it is more unique than any other mitzvah. Again, Lamed Zayin, 37th chapter, in the first segment, Lukuti Amorim. So that's the tzedakah ha'oil al kolona, supersedes over every other mitzvah. For the reason, again, explained in a number of places, but that is definitely a message which is an overarching message, which tells us the great virtue of mitzvah tzedakah. Hamagina, and also tzedakah has within itself that koyach, that energy to shield a person in this world. Magno matzla, which shields the person from any negative spirit or even zeta, decree, individual, collective. It says tzedakah shields a person from anything negative which chas v'shalom could go his way. His way, family, Rachmana litzlan. And not only that, it's not that the person reaps the rewards in this world and that's it. In the world to come, the mitzvah tzedakah which he performed is not going to be mentioned. No, the principle remains in the world to come. But even the fruit of this principle is enough energy to save a person in this physical world, of different punishments, which could unfold in the odyssey of a human being in this world, with all the different bumps and trials. And tzedakah saves the person. Like it said, tzedakah tatzim mavis has such a koyach to save a person from even death. How much more so is the koyach to save a person from any other afflictions and endurance of pain, which are lighter by definition than death, which is of course an extreme, difficult experience. shall we not know about it? Kalim, which by definition, how much more so this, that it would save from this which is different punishment, which is less. It has the koyach, has the ability to save a person from life and from death, which means even it's decreed on higher Chman al-Islam, that their person should chas v'shalom pass on, but the mitzvah tzedakah would save a person. How much more so it would save a person from any other difficulty, which is by definition lighter than death. That's the koyach of tzedakah. How much more so? Kol shkein shetoiv lonu gam b'olam hazeh lahakdima kol ma de'efshar. That it's good that in this world, when we execute the mitzvah tzedakah, to do it a day earlier. Again, as Al Rebbe explained, do it every week, at least every month. Continue to set aside these money for tzedakah, because what is important is not only to implement the mitzvah tzedakah, which we learned from Avraham Avinu, is to do it with excitement, with alacrity, meaning to say that it should reflect on our constant giving tzedakah, constant, in that case, constantly separating the money for this important campaign on a monthly basis, and better yet on a weekly basis, because you're magdim kol ma de'efshar, and that is the great virtue of Avraham Avinu, which the Chazal glean from, and this becomes part of our mandate to not only do the mitzvahs, in this case the mitzvah tzedakah, but la'akdima kol ma de'efshar, as much as you can do it earlier, one day earlier, is even greater. Not just the noble thing to do, but it has a virtue, additional wave of virtue, which is even similar to the mitzvah tzedakah itself. And again, in our life, someone comes, there's a calling. Yeah, I'll send the check. The check is going to be in the mail tomorrow, and usually it's 2 days or 3 days or a week. You're giving it. There's something, not only calculatively, you're giving it anyways, might as well give it earlier. Why are you procrastinating? There's a calling, there's a need, there's a families which need to be supported, whatever the calling is. So you're giving it anyways. Why would you procrastinate? But that's human nature. There is something virtuous to overcome that human nature, like we have Avraham Avinu. Yes, he would do it, but no, he did it with simcha v'tuv levov laharis, to show the ritzayim v'chafetzei, to fulfill the ratzon kenya, and to bring greater nachas ruach liyitzrei. Write the check right now. Send it with a courier, not only regular mail. That is a different type of nachas ruach, which you're giving in the end of the day your commander, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And finally, which we'll leave off at this time, there's something also that a person, it's not only the tzedakah a person periodically gives. Every day there's a mitzvah to give tzedakah. And therefore a person should not necessarily say, okay, I'm going to do this earlier and that for that cause. Another cause I'll procrastinate. A year is judged every single day from on high, which is based on the famous Gemara, the Machlekes of Rebbe, the Chachamim, about a person judged only Rosh Hashanah, and the rest of the year just unfolds of that judgment. But and then there's the other opinion which says that a person judged every day. And in the end, ultimately, everybody holds, like the Alter Rebbe famously explains, and we must say that everybody holds that a person is judged every single day. And how do we exactly explain that argument? Again, it's explained in a number of places. It's not that complicated, because the Rebbe also said that one has to daven every day. The Rebbe just, what are we davening for, Refuah Shlema or Birchas Hashanim, if it was already established in Rosh Hashanah? The Rebbe knew. The Rebbe also did not argue that a person has to daven every day, and based if it's only he's only judged Rosh Hashanah, what's the point of davening every day? It's already, whatever was allotted to him or her is already there. It's pointless to go ahead and daven to Hashem, please Hashem, give me something, which if you have it, it's there. If you don't, it's not there. So the Rebbe also agrees that Adam Nidin B'chol Yom, a person is judged every single day, and therefore, as Alter Rebbe explained, again, a explanation of the Alter Rebbe like nothing, no other explanation. It's the Alter Rebbe's explanation, L'Kutei Torah. It's not in Sefer Tanya, and it's a Maimer in Shlach, I believe, or in Kairach. I believe it's in Kairach, the Parach Matiyarin. I believe it's in that Maimer, and other places in the Kutei Torah also. The Rebbe mentions that even Rebbe would also agree that Adam Nidin B'chol Yom, and therefore, yes, man is judged every single day. So therefore, it's not about that tzedakah or that action or that, namely when it comes to tzedakah, that campaign, this campaign. Every day a person is judged, and a person has to shield himself from any chas v'shalom negative energy which would come him or her way, family, whatever it is. And the person has to be careful not only to do what he has to do, but to do it earlier, to do it behagdama, to do it with haste, with excitement, with alacrity, in order that he should be judged favorably that very day. And again, back to the message, the Alter Rebbe is encouraging Yidden should give, not only give, but midi Shabbos b'Shabbati l'chufachos, at least midi Chedesh b'Chadshay. Shall all of Am Yisrael, individually and collectively, be favorably judged, and namely all the brachas should come b'li gvul, without any limit, and barchava b'li dai, to every single kol echad ba'achas mibnei u'bnei Yisrael, and collectively. The final schus, the Eibishter should again with Am Yisrael to bring the Geula Amitis Vashleima, which is again the most positive verdict which can come towards Am Yisrael. Have a wonderful night.